Let's talk about something that might sound a little bit radical. When can you actually stop saving for retirement? I mean, for decades, the message has been drilled into us, right? Save more, invest more, max out every single account you have. But what if? What if you're already there? What if you're still working, still grinding, still sacrificing for a retirement that's already been fully paid for? In this explainer, we are going to dig into that exact idea. We're going to use a framework, one that's backed by a ton of research, to figure out when enough is really, truly enough.
So let me just ask you this right off the bat. Are you working for a retirement you've already funded? I know, it's a jarring question. If you've been a responsible, diligent saver your whole life, it almost feels wrong to even think about it. But the truth is, for a lot of people, especially if you're over 50 and you've built up a pretty healthy nest egg, the answer to that question might genuinely surprise you.
You know, what's really fascinating about this is how often people cross the finish line without ever even knowing the race is over. Let me tell you a quick story from the source material. It's about a 58-year-old client, a super successful guy who'd saved up over $5 million. And yet, he was still acting like he was 30, just starting out, maxing out every single retirement account year after year, like clockwork. Well, when his advisor actually laid out the math for him, showing him that he had already saved more than enough to support an incredible retirement with a 95% confidence rate, he just stopped. He just stared at the numbers, and all he said was, "I've been on autopilot for 15 years. Think about that. He had already won the game, and he was still playing, still sacrificing, because he never thought to look up at the scoreboard. That right there is the retirement autopilot trap.
And this really gets to the core of why we're talking about this. The real cost of being on autopilot isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. So many people are unintentionally working longer than they have to, carrying stress they don't need to carry, and this is the big one, they're denying themselves amazing life experiences, all for a future that's already been paid for, already secured. They're essentially just piling up wealth that will likely go to their kids, often in a really tax-inefficient way, by the way, instead of using it to live the life they worked so incredibly hard to build. Today, we're going to challenge that entire mindset.
Okay, so how do we snap out of it? How do we get off that autopilot? Well, you need a gauge, right? You need a number that tells you where you are, kind of like a fuel gauge in a car. This brings us to our first really big concept, your retirement safety number. And to find it, we're going to introduce you to a simple but really powerful tool called the funded ratio. This is what helps us shift the whole conversation away from that endless, nagging question of how can I save more to the much more empowering question, is what I have enough? So what in the world is this funded ratio? Well, don't let the technical-sounding name fool you. It is a super straightforward, research-backed calculation that professional planners use all the time. And the beauty of it is its simplicity. At its very core, it's just this: what you have divided by what you need. That's it. It's a simple piece of division that can change your entire perspective. So let's break down how you find those two numbers right now. All right, let's walk through this together. Step one, we got to figure out what you need. A really great baseline for this is to take your desired annual spending in retirement, how much you want to live on each year, and divide that by 5%. Or an easier way is just to multiply it by 20. So for example, if you want to spend $120,000 a year, you multiply that by 20 and you get a target of $2.4 million. Now hold on, we're going to talk a lot more about that 5% number in just a second. Step two, add up what you have. This is all your retirement assets, your 401ks, your IRAs, brokerage accounts, the whole shebang. Step three, and this one is so important, you subtract the value of any guaranteed income you have. So for every $1,000 a month you'll get from Social Security or a pension, that lowers the amount your portfolio needs to generate by about $240,000. It's a huge factor. And then finally, step four, you divide what you have by what you now need. Boom, that's your funded ratio.
Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. I know I saw some eyebrows go up when I said 5%. For years, the 4% rule has been treated like it was handed down on stone tablets. But here's the thing you have to understand about the 4% rule. It was designed from the get-go to protect you against the absolute single worst-case scenario in modern history, which was retiring right around 1965 or 1966. On the other hand, when you look at the research, when you look at data going all the way back to 1911, a 5% withdrawal rate has been historically sustainable in the vast majority of retirement scenarios. So basing your entire life plan, your entire future, on a catastrophic scenario that's happened maybe twice in over a century, well, that can lead to a whole lot of unnecessary work and sacrifice.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Look at this. That tiny little bar on the left, that represents the period where a 5% withdrawal rate might have run into trouble. It's just a tiny sliver of retirement history over the last 100+ years. Now look at the big bar. That's the rest of the time.
the vast majority of scenarios where it worked just fine. You know, even Bill Bengen, the guy who created the 4% rule, has said it was designed as a worst-case framework, just to give people confidence. So using 5% as our practical baseline for this calculation is a very, very reasonable place to start.
Okay, so you've done the math, you've got your ratio. What does that number actually mean for you? Well, here's what the research tells us. If your funded ratio is at 100%, meaning you have exactly what you need based on that 5% baseline, you've got about an 82% historical success rate. Pretty good. But look what happens when it goes up. At 120%, you're jumping up to a 94% success rate. If you hit 150% funded ratio, you are looking at a 97% chance of success. And at 200%, it's 98%. This table is great because it gives you a clear, tangible benchmark to see exactly where you stand.
Now, this is maybe the most important takeaway from the numbers. I want you to look closely at the jump from 150% funded to 200% funded. Your funded ratio goes up by a massive 50 percentage points, but your success rate, it only inches up by 1%, from 97 to 98. This is the definition of diminishing returns. After you hit about 150% funded ratio, you are no longer buying meaningful amounts of safety. You're just buying missed experiences. You're trading more years of your life, more years of work, for a 1% gain in portfolio success. At that point, you have to stop and ask yourself, is that trade worth it?
All right, but even if the math is crystal clear, even if your funded ratio is sitting at a beautiful 160%, I know what many of you are thinking. It's that little voice in your head that says, but what if? And this is where we have to move beyond the calculator and talk about the incredibly powerful psychology of saving. It's time to look at the battle that goes on in our heads between our fear and the actual facts.
Just look at this number for a second, 40%. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 40% of retirees who have over $1 million saved still worry frequently about running out of money. Let that sink in. These are millionaires. It's not because they have a math problem. It's because the fear, the habit of worrying, has become so deeply ingrained that the number in the bank account doesn't even matter anymore.
And these are the things we tell ourselves, right? What if there's another 2008? What if I live to be 100 years old? What if healthcare costs just go through the roof? And look, these are all valid things to think about, but they often become these emotional roadblocks that stop us in our tracks. The real problem is that fear doesn't go away when you have more money. It just moves the goalposts. The person with $2 million worries about a crash, and you know what? The person with $6 million worries about a crash too. It becomes a psychological game we play with ourselves, not just a mathematical equation to solve.
And here is the hard reality check that all that fear tends to block out. Your money might be a renewable resource. You can always make more, but your time and your health, they are not. Medical research is pretty clear on this. You really only get about 8 to 10 good, active, what they call go-go years in retirement. And other data shows that travel spending, for example, drops by a whopping 60% after your 15th year of retirement. This is your window. Waiting for 100% absolute bulletproof certainty means you risk missing that window entirely.
I want you to really let this sink in, because it's such a powerful way to reframe this whole thing. The real cost of oversaving isn't a rounding error on a balance sheet. It is a life unlived. You cannot put experiences in a high-yield savings account and watch them grow. You can't compound memories. The time you have to be healthy and active is the one non-renewable resource that you are trading for that extra tiny bit of financial security you probably don't even need.
And here's another fact that should give you a ton of confidence. You are not a spreadsheet. You know those standard retirement calculators, the Monte Carlo simulations? They all make a huge, flawed assumption. They assume you're a robot who will spend the exact same inflation-adjusted amount of money every single year, no matter what is happening in the world. But that is not how people work. Research from experts like Wade Pfau shows that retirees who make small, totally intuitive adjustments when the market is down, we're talking simple things like cutting back spending by just 10% for a year or two. They see their portfolio success rates absolutely skyrocket. Humans adapt. It is our greatest strength, and it is a massive safety net that those rigid models completely ignore.
Okay, so let's say I've convinced you. Your funded ratio is well over 150%. You understand the psychology, and you're ready to start actually living. Well, there is one more critical piece to this puzzle. Because continuing to save at this stage isn't just pointless, it can be actively harmful to your finances. We need to talk about the hidden cost of oversaving, the retirement tax bomb.
Let's look at a real-world example from the source material, because this makes it so clear. You've got a client with a $4.5 million portfolio, and about 80% of that money is in pre-tax accounts like a traditional 401k. Now, at age 73, the government steps in and forces him to take out what are called required minimum distributions, or RMDs. In his case, that's an extra $169,000 of taxable income a year. You add that to his Social Security and some rental income, and his total taxable income balloons to over $244,000. But here's the kicker. He only wants to spend $150,000 a year to live his life. This means he is being forced by the government to pay a 24 or even higher tax rate on almost $100,000 of income that he does not need and does not want. It's a massive, completely unnecessary tax bill that he has to pay every single year.
So what do you do about that? What's the answer? Well, the smart move isn't just to stop saving. The smart move is to pivot. It's time to shift your entire mindset from one of accumulation to one of strategic distribution. It's time to graduate from simply saving to engaging in smart, forward-looking tax planning.
And guess what? There is a perfect time to make this pivot. It's a period that financial planners call the retirement tax window. These are the golden years right after you stop working, but before those nasty RMDs kick in. In this window, your earned income drops to zero, which likely puts you in a much lower tax bracket. This creates a unique, powerful, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get ahead of that tax bomb and diffuse it before it goes off.
The number one strategy here is the Roth conversion. During this tax window, when your income is low, you strategically convert money from your pre-tax traditional IRA over to a post-tax Roth IRA. Now, yes, you do have to pay taxes on the amount you convert today, but here's the key. You're doing it at your new, lower tax rate. This move accomplishes three incredible things. First, every single dollar you convert is one less dollar that will be subject to those huge, forced RMDs later on. Second, you create a beautiful, tax-free legacy for your kids, since Roth IRAs can pass to your heirs completely tax-free. And third, and maybe most importantly, you put yourself back in the driver's seat. You gain control over your cash flow, instead of having the IRS tell you when and how much money you have to take out.
So I want to leave you with a really simple challenge for this weekend. A little bit of homework. First, take a real shot at calculating your funded ratio. You don't have to be perfect, just get yourself in the ballpark. Second, if that number comes back over 130%, maybe 140%, I want you to sit down and seriously ask yourself this question. What am I sacrificing in my life right now for a tiny, tiny marginal gain in safety? And finally, just start to think about that pivot. Maybe it's time to stop worrying about how much more you can save and start focusing on how smartly you can manage the incredible nest egg you've already built.
You know, at the end of the day, this is not just about spreadsheets and tax codes and withdrawal rates. It's about your life. Nobody gets to the end of their life and says, gosh, I wish my Monte Carlo simulation had a 99% success rate instead of just 97%. No one says that. But plenty of people say, I wish I had taken that trip. I wish I'd spent more time with my family. I wish I hadn't waited so long. So the final question here isn't really about your money at all. It's about your time. If you run the numbers and realize you've already won the game, what are you going to do with all the time you just bought back?